Our story revolves around Wu's family, who are involved in a large-scale import-export business. Wu has an older brother named Lei who is 2 years his senior. Lei has been in a long-term relationship with his childhood sweetheart Zhou since high school. Their romance has lasted nearly a decade, and they were on the brink of marriage, having met each other's families and discussing wedding plans. In April 2016, Lei decided to take Zhou on a month-long trip to Japan, with plans to propose during their journey. Zhou was well aware of Lei's intentions, and they both prepared for the trip with excitement. Their itinerary included many famous Japanese cities and scenic spots, and their journey was mostly smooth and enjoyable. One day the couple found themselves in the southern part of Yamanashi Prefecture, near Mount Fuji. Yamanashi is renowned for being home to the iconic Mount Fuji, often referred to as the Holy Mountain. However, the prefecture is also famous for a more sinister location, the Fuji-Kawaguchiko, or the Sea of Trees, a dense forest at the base of Mount Fuji. While the forest is beautiful and serene, it is infamous for being a popular site for suicides in Japan, due to societal pressures and cultural factors. Japan has one of the highest suicide rates among developed countries. Many who choose to end their lives do so in this forest, earning it the grim nickname Suicide Forest. Unaware of the forest's dark reputation, they went to Japan simply to have a fun and enjoyable time. The scenery of Fuji-Kawaguchiko is incredibly beautiful, elegant, and serene. It's the perfect place for young couples to visit together. It was early April, not the best time for climbing Mount Fuji, so they planned to explore the area around Fuji-Kawaguchiko for a few days. They decided to stay in a charming local guest house in Fuji-Kawaguchiko. The guest house they chose was highly recommended and well known locally. The first 2 days of their stay were uneventful. However, on the third night, Lei experienced something truly eerie. From that point on, a series of eerie nightmares began to unfold. After a long day of sightseeing, the couple returned to the guest house exhausted. They went to bed early, but around midnight, Lei was jolted awake by strange noises. In his half-asleep state, he heard the sound of wooden clogs tapping on the floor. Thud, thud, thud. He forced his eyes open and saw a figure. In the dim light filtering through the curtains, a woman dressed in a dark kimono, embroidered with large butterflies, walked past him with an odd shuffling gait. Her hair was disheveled, and she moved with her knees bent, taking small steps. She disappeared as quickly as she appeared, leaving Lei feeling bewildered and frightened. He looked around, but the room seemed normal. The moonlight cast faint shadows, and everything appeared as it should. He thought to himself, I just saw a woman walk past me in a really strange posture. Where did she go? Did I just imagine it? Lei told himself he must have been dreaming, and tried to go back to sleep. But soon the sound of wooden clogs returned, even closer this time. It felt as if the woman had walked right past his head. Lei sat up abruptly, his heart pounding. He examined the room carefully, but saw nothing unusual. His girlfriend Zhou was sleeping soundly beside him, and the room was quiet except for the distant chirping of insects. Lei quietly got up and turned on the desk lamp, with the light illuminating the room. He carefully inspected his surroundings, but found nothing out of the ordinary. Just as he was puzzled, his girlfriend was woken up by the light. Rubbing her eyes, she asked, "What's wrong? Why aren't you sleeping?" Lei didn't dare tell his girlfriend about the strange woman he had seen, or the sound of wooden clogs on the floor. He didn't want to scare her, so he comforted her by saying, "It's nothing, really. I just had a bad dream." He decided to try to get some more sleep, but kept the desk lamp on, dimming it to its lowest brightness, so as not to disturb his girlfriend. As expected, once he lay down, he quickly fell asleep again, and no more strange occurrences happened. The next morning, the couple decided to leave Fuji-Kawaguchiko and continue their journey. Lei didn't mention the strange encounter to Zhou, dismissing it as a nightmare. However, as they packed their bags, Lei felt uneasy and decided to search the room, though he wasn't sure what he was looking for. In the bottom shelf of a bookcase, he found a small black lacquer box hidden from view. Curious, he opened it and discovered a beautifully crafted Japanese tortoise-shell comb inside. The comb was exquisite, but something about it made Lei feel uneasy. He had an inexplicable sense of discomfort, as if the comb shouldn't be there. Zhou, who had heard the noise, came over and asked what was wrong. Lei dismissed it, saying he had found an old comb in the bookcase. He placed the box back in the bookcase and closed the box, deciding not to mention the strange encounter from the night before. After a few minutes, his girlfriend finished packing and came out to find him. The couple gathered their luggage and left the guest house. After that, they continued their journey visiting other cities in Japan. After their trip, Lei proposed to Jo, and she happily accepted. They returned home without any further strange occurrences. However, a week after returning, Lei had a vivid nightmare that left him shaken. In the dream, he and Jo were at Narita Airport, preparing to go through security. As Jo passed through without issue, Lei was stopped by the security officers. The two security officers who stopped Lei had very stern expressions. Lei was bewildered and said, "Why are you stopping me? I'm not carrying any prohibited items." But one of the officers replied, "It's not about prohibited items. What are you holding in your hands?" Lei looked down and saw that he was holding a black lacquer wooden box. He had no idea how or when it had appeared in his hands. This isn't mine," he stammered. The box seemed to have materialized out of thin air, but he immediately recognized it as the same black lacquer box he had found at the bottom of the bookshelf in the guest house in Fuji-Kawaguchiko, the one containing the tortoiseshell comb. He tried to explain to the officers, "This box isn't mine." He even attempted to throw it away, but the other officer grabbed his arm and said, "Don't rush to get rid of it. Open it and see what's inside." Lei was frantic. "This isn't my box. I have no idea how it got here, and whatever is inside has nothing to do with me." But the officers insisted. "Open the lid and take a look." Reluctantly, Lei opened the box. He expected to see the tortoiseshell comb, but instead he was horrified to find a woman's head inside, wrapped in long matted hair. Lei screamed, "This isn't mine. It belongs to the guest house. I don't know how it got here. I have nothing to do with this." He tried to throw the box away, but both officers grabbed his hands, preventing him from doing so. "Young man, do you have any idea how dangerous it is to carry something like this? Do you really want to get rid of it?" they said, holding him firmly. Lei shouted, "It's not mine. Let go of me." He struggled desperately, but the officer's grip was unyielding. In that moment, he woke up with a start. He sat up in bed, his heart pounding and his body drenched in cold sweat. The nightmare felt incredibly real, and the details were etched vividly in his mind. The scene at Narita Airport, the stern expressions of the security officers, and the horrifying contents of the box. All of it felt terrifyingly lifelike. Lei was left with an unsettling feeling, unable to shake off the fear and anxiety that lingered even after waking up. That morning, he went to his office and spent some time online researching Fuji-Kawaguchiko, the place they had visited. He stumbled upon information about the Aokigaharajukai, the suicide forest. Lei had no idea that this forest was a notorious site for suicides in Japan. Had he known, he probably would have never visited Yamanashi Prefecture in the first place. As he read through various articles and forum posts, he learned that most people who committed suicide in Aokigahara chose hanging. Some sources mentioned that the forest had an eerie atmosphere, as if it were imbued with a strange magnetic field that could interfere with compasses, rendering them useless. The Japanese police deployed significant manpower every year to search the forest, but not to find the living, rather to recover the bodies of those who had taken their own lives. Many of the corpses found were merely skeletons covered in moss. One particular legend left a deep impression on Lei. It said that because so many people committed suicide by hanging in the forest, the trees absorbed their spirits over time and became sentient. Locals would occasionally cut down some of these trees, fashioning the wood into intricate ornaments and placing them in their homes. These ornaments were believed to bring good fortune. In fact, many guest houses and inns in the area had items made from this special wood. One post even mentioned that if you stayed in the area and heard strange noises at night, you shouldn't be afraid. The noises were likely related to these haunted ornaments. As long as you didn't disturb them, they wouldn't harm you. When Lei read this, he felt a chill run down his spine. Could it be that the woman he saw that night, with her eerie posture and butterfly patterned kimono was actually a spirit from the forest. He thought about it for a long time, feeling a mix of fear and relief that he hadn't interacted with whatever it was. He tried to convince himself that it was just a nightmare and that everything was fine now. He closed all the web pages, trying to shake off the unsettling feeling. After all, he had been home for a while now, and aside from the nightmare, nothing else strange had happened. He decided to focus on work and put the whole thing behind him. Little did he know that just 2 days later, Lei had another nightmare, this time with a different twist. The setting was the same, Narita Airport security checkpoint, but the plot had changed. In this dream, when the security officers demanded that he open the box, Lei saw the woman's head wrapped in long hair, and like the first time, he wasn't panicked. Instead, he quickly closed the box and hugged it tightly, trying to break through the security checkpoint and into the airport. His girlfriend Jo was ahead of him, and he wanted to catch up to her, but he didn't get far before the security officers grabbed him. The officers were frantic, warning him, "You can't bring that thing into the airport. What are you doing?" But in the dream, Lei was determined to get through. As they struggled, Lei let out a loud scream, which jolted Jo awake from her deep sleep. Jo quickly asked him, "What's wrong? Did you have a nightmare?" Lei nodded, still sweating profusely. He hadn't fully snapped out of the dream yet. He felt cold and his throat was dry. His face was a picture of terror. Jo comforted him and got up to get him some water. When she returned, she saw that Lei was still in a daze. She teased him gently. "What's gotten into you? You're acting like a scared little kid clinging to your pillow." Only then did Lei realize that he was tightly hugging a pillow, so tightly that his arms had gone numb. In his dream, he had been clutching the box, with the woman's head inside, trying to rush into the airport. The pillow was now misshapen from his grip. Lei felt a wave of nausea and quickly threw the pillow to the ground. He grabbed the glass of water from Jo and gulped it down in large swallows, gasping for breath afterward. Jo was worried. She had never seen her boyfriend so terrified. "What happened? What did you dream about? Tell me," she urged, but Lei shook his head. "It's nothing really. I just had a bad dream. Again. I'm just a bit scared." Jo kept encouraging him to talk about it, but Lei was reluctant. Deep down, he felt that this was more than just a simple nightmare. After more than 2 weeks of relative peace, Lei's life seemed to return to normal. He didn't have any strange dreams at night, but for some reason, he felt increasingly uneasy. His anxiety grew day by day. He had a strong premonition that this calm was just the eye of the storm, that the nightmare wasn't over. The longer the quiet lasted, the more intense the next wave would be. He felt restless and worried every day, but he couldn't explain it to anyone. Life felt like a daily struggle. One weekend evening, Lei was lying in bed, scrolling through his phone while Jo was already asleep. As he grew more frustrated and tired, he decided to put his phone away and sleep. But then, he noticed Jo's legs twitching and struggling, her body trembling as if she was terrified. Lei quickly moved closer to wake her up. He could hear her mumbling incoherently, and he could see her eyes rolling rapidly beneath her eyelids. She seemed to be experiencing something far more unsettling than just a bad dream. Lei realized that Jo wasn't just having a nightmare. She was experiencing sleep paralysis. He gently patted her cheeks and called her name. After a few moments, she let out a scream and sat up abruptly, her expression one of sheer terror. She stared at Lei with wide, frightened eyes, not at all like someone who had just woken up groggy and confused. Lei, though scared himself, tried to stay calm to comfort her. "What's wrong? Did you have a nightmare?" he asked cautiously. Jo took a while to collect herself before she spoke. "I just had a really terrifying dream. We were at Narita Airport, going through security on our way back from Japan. I went through first, but you were stopped by the security officers. They said you had something suspicious and wouldn't let you through. You suddenly tried to rush past them, but they held you back. I was so worried. I kept shouting and waving at you, asking what was going on. Then you threw a box at me and told me to run. I had no idea what was happening, but I grabbed the box and ran inside. The security guards were chasing me. I had no choice but to hide in the women's restroom.